I can honestly say that there are spectacles in World War Z that I have never seen in another game. There's a sort of primal terror to seeing what looks like a sort of malevolent, almost liquid swarm rush towards you. I've seen it even played a few zombie games before, but I've seen nothing that triggers the sort of deep-rooted terror like the scale that World War Z conjures up. I'm not much of a zombie guy by default, but I've seen Left 4 Dead and even played a small amount, but I'm not the sort of person to seek out that sort of experience, to be honest. But I have a friend called Lil, and she corrals people into buying games with her. I'm not going to say bullying, but I'm going to look into your eyes and then nod silently up and down. Anyhow, she streams at the weekends too. I'll link her Twitch below if you want to check it out.
You're piling up to our level.
So I find myself playing a zombie game for the first time in, well, yeah, a while. And even from my limited knowledge, it's fair to say that World War Z plays some severe homage to Left 4 Dead. Many of the mechanics will seem familiar to fans of those classic games almost the moment they start playing. So I guess it's expected that a lot of people might scoff at that, perhaps call it derivative or whatever, and I can see that viewpoint. If you're not looking for that Left 4 Dead-like experience, you might want to pass on World War Z. But for those people who have been waiting about 10 years, and yes, it really has been that long since Left 4 Dead 2, then perhaps this is exactly the sort of thing those people have been waiting for. See it as a remaster or a reimagining or a retake on that beloved idea if you want. But know that some notable concepts and ideas have been added into the mix to make World War Z not just a clone. The scale I mentioned previously is a big selling point for the title. See it not just as the clusters or streams of zombies, but full rampant hordes. Enough to make it too many for your eye to track, and suddenly it just looks like a mass tidal wave. But wait, that tidal wave is seemingly creating mass organic pyramids to reach upper levels. They're individual monsters, yet they act with some hive mind or logic. It makes it even more scary to play against. Another welcome addition to the formula is unlocks and progression, both at a class level, and there are 6 unique classes to pick from, and at a weapon level too. I ended up playing a lot of medic, as is the style of such things. So after a few missions I had enough points to unlock abilities such as starting with more health, or, when applying a med pack to another player, also receive 50% of the healing for myself, which is a huge advantage for higher difficulty tiers. There are a whole host of unlocks for every class, and it gives not just incentives to replay content, but it genuinely does give the feeling of progression and getting more powerful as you play the game. At a weapon level, there are both stat and visual upgrades too. You want more magazine capacity? There are upgrades. Accuracy? There are upgrades. There's pure power? Yep, upgrades to that too. Each time, the base weapon model looks even more modified and customized. The levels too are well put together. There's a feeling of not quite AAA, but good quality modelling and texturing and general flow and design. The storyline goes from New York to Jerusalem via Moscow and culminating in Tokyo, each of the maps feeling unique and bespoke to their location. That feeling of quality extends to the actual playable characters too. The models are impressively created, and with this being a third-person game, that's even more important. But there's almost a bizarre level of character, narrative setup and backstory in there too. Each one of the multitude of different protagonists, which are independent of class by the way, so don't worry about needing to pick a certain character to fit a certain role, has flavor text describing their situation, their mental state and what motivates them, which is kind of normal, but some of it is really quite powerful, and somehow they manage to get a lot of that emotion into the idle animations you see on the main menu UI screens. What's more, each character also has a backstory video, unlocked after you play them, to further give you details about why they're there and what they might be thinking. It's reflected more in their actual voice callouts while playing too, but it seems surprising for such a focus to be placed on the sort of narrative side, when a significant number of players are just here to shoot zombies and be scared with their friends. The gameplay is generally good, the movement is a little stilted and restrained for my liking. If you've come from something like Apex or another title like COD, then the lack of jumping and the slower mantling setup will make you feel a bit clumsy and less mobile for sure. The dynamically changing maps are a nice touch. Just because a certain route through a large room or a certain spot had an ammo container on your last run doesn't mean it'll be there in the same configuration next time. Similarly, if you get into a fight in an area but don't progress through, you might find more zombies attacking you at different spots in the map this time. It helps not to have battles in the same area every time, but of course this helps for replayability. The gunplay is okay, the weapons feel different to use. I also like how it doesn't force you to ADS. You can hip fire in a dirty bomb style, and I find myself much more comfortable playing like that. The weapon sounds are a little weedy though. It's personal preference, yeah, but if things aren't Battlefield good, then I find that it stands out to me now. For negatives, and there are some, the general feeling of quality that comes from the main menu UI and other elements doesn't extend down to more basic user experience things, like, for example, using abilities. For one example, how easy it is to accidentally use a medic pack on yourself when you meant to use it on another teammate. And for a game that likes to highlight zombies with outlines, the lack of a similar system to show what teammates are about to be healed leads to many frustrating moments. Cases in the world too often use similar visual design to those that contain items for you to pick up. So many times you'll see something that looks promising only to find it's just a prop in the level. You end up memorizing the common spawn points for these cases and ignoring the many almost identical looking ones littered throughout the world. It feels a bit odd at times. On the technical side, performance is particularly impressive given the scale of some of these engagements. I didn't worry about performance at all while playing on my old 970 GPU. It basically never dropped below 60 FPS apart from in some of the more open vistas of the Tokyo maps, and even then it dropped into like the mid-50s or something. There have also been some connection issues, not unusual for a launch game for sure, but it did seem at some points that we struggled to all get loaded into a server. It seems to be better now, but it's worth mentioning all the same. Somewhat of a surprise for me was the inclusion of a PvP mode. It's not the survivor versus zombies of Left 4 Dead, but a team-based survivor versus survivor mode with the zombies acting as a sort of environmental hazard. I was also surprised by how fun the PvP could actually be. It instantly felt enjoyable and approachable after playing the normal PvE campaign. I didn't play a lot, but the domination mode, where you obviously count points to increase team score, was nicely adapted, with zombie hordes charging through areas, adding complexity to the fighting with the other team, but also resetting the nearby points to an uncaptured state. It's kind of a nice touch. The downside to the PvP was the wholly unsuitable nature of the melee system though. I'd say that the melee system feels pretty odd even in the normal PvE too. It sort of snaps you to and in the direction of nearby zombies within a certain radius. It's almost like a pseudo-movement skill at times. You learn to play with it in the campaign as you rely on the ability to sort of plow through the swarms. However, the melee works the same in the PvP mode too. So if someone gets near you, they can seemingly teleport from a distance away and then just one-tap you after they appear next to you. It's just not a system that should be in PvP at all, in my opinion. We should talk about price as well. Some of this topic is probably for another video, so let's deal with the headline costs first. In the US, World War Z is $34.99. In the UK, it's £31.99. So it's not AAA pricing, it's definitely not a cheap indie title either. There's a lot of polish to a lot of elements, yet it still does lack refinement and development in some other ways. There are 4 world locations, 3 with 3 maps, and Tokyo, which has 2, so it's a total of 11 maps at launch. On the whole, the cost feels slightly on the high side of okay, and the cynic in me guesses that licensing the World War Z name couldn't exactly be the cheapest thing in the world. But on the whole, the experience it can deliver with friends can be very satisfying and a lot of fun. The other side of the pricing argument isn't something specific to World War Z, and hence my thoughts about talking about it in another video, and that's regional pricing on the Epic Store. Simply put, at $34.99, Google's instant conversion places that at under £27 in the UK. So let's say that in the real world it's more like £28. In fact, you know what, let's say it's more like £29. Well, the price on the Epic Store for World War Z in the UK is £31.99, which is 10% more than that price. Like I said, this isn't a World War Z thing, but it does affect people when buying in other regions, so I thought it was at least worth talking about for a few seconds. For someone who's not a zombie guy, I've played a lot of World War Z over the past few days. I find myself thinking about it when I'm not playing and planning upgrades in my head and trying to formulate some tactic to beat tough maps at higher difficulty levels. I certainly wouldn't have guessed a zombie game would occupy this much of my time a few weeks back. So am I thanking Lil for corralling me into trying something different? I guess so, in a way, you know, somewhat begrudgingly. It's certainly outside my usual comfort zone of games that I'd consider getting. Playing with friends to come up with a strategy to beat a level can be really quite rewarding in a way that I wouldn't have expected that I'd enjoy so much. I'm interested in your opinion of World War Z though. Does it look like something that you'd enjoy? Did you play the original Left 4 Dead or Left 4 Dead 2? If so, what are your thoughts on this title and what it's brought to this genre of zombie games? Just leave a comment below right now. I'll be reading every single one of them. Please do leave some feedback, a thumb, perhaps even subscribe if you don't already. It helps me continue to make videos just like this one. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.